Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. The latest college football playoff rankings are out. LSU, no surprise, at the number 1 spot after beating Alabama 46-41. Ohio State at the number 2 spot. No surprise. And this is a team that continues to put up tons of offense. They're loaded. I mean, this is the Big Ten favorite. No surprise to see LSU jump Ohio State, however. Number 3, Clemson. They won't stop losing. 25 in a row. Trevor Lawrence doing a great job leading the Tigers at the later part of the season. 3-0. They're still suspect in my opinion. I mean, that game where they nearly lost to North Carolina sits in the back of everybody's mind. And moving forward, we'll look at their resume. They still got a couple games left where they're not gimme games, as we talked about before. At the number 4 spot, Georgia. I kind of figured the committee would put Georgia at the number 4 spot. Now, here's why. And we'll look at the playoff resumes in just a second. But Georgia has 2 wins over 2 top 10 teams. Now, they're not 2 top 10 teams currently. That's Florida and Notre Dame. But those were earlier in the season. And the seeding committee liked that perspective, obviously, as of today. Now, number 5, you have the Alabama Crimson Tide. I know a lot of you are pretty surprised because Alabama was number 4 in the coaches and AP poll. However, that loss is fresh. It's just coming off to LSU. Is there a little Bama fatigue in the committee room? Possibly. But Alabama still has a shot to make the playoffs, as you can see. They're ranked above Oregon. Now, Oregon is the current leader of the Pac-12. They still have to win out. You still have Utah sitting in there. But if Oregon wins out, and as we've talked about before, who does Oregon have that one loss against? Well, they have that one loss against Auburn. So Alabama needs to take care of business, just as Nick Saban said at the beginning of this week. All Alabama has to do is win the rest of their games. It's all they can do. They need to focus. They can't focus on the predictions, the projections, because right now, they have to beat Mississippi State, then Western Carolina, and then they have to beat Auburn, most importantly. So let's look at the playoff resumes real quick for each of these teams, and we're going to do that right now. LSU, 9-0 in the season, key games remaining. Ole Miss, Arkansas, Texas A&M, number of wins against top 25 teams, very impressive, 4. Number of wins against top 10 teams, 1. They just beat Alabama, as you know, 46-41. AP poll 1, coaches poll 1, conference champion. We'll see. They got to beat Georgia. And that would really bode well for the Alabama Crimson Tide. As you know, Georgia's right there at that 4 spot. So if LSU is able to beat Georgia, that certainly helps out Alabama if Alabama does go unbeaten the rest of the way. Looking at the number 2 team, that's going to be Ohio State. Number 2 in the country, as mentioned, 9-0 in the season, games remaining. Rutgers, Penn State, Michigan. They should win all of those games without a doubt. Top 25 victories, 2. Number of wins against top 10 teams. They don't have any. Their best win is against Wisconsin and Michigan State. Notable wins, AP poll and coaches poll, both number 2. Look at that third team, Clemson. 10-0 in the season, games remaining. Wake Forest, South Carolina. And those aren't gimme games. I mean, South Carolina's a rivalry game. Wake Forest has a pretty good offense. Number of wins against top 25 teams, only 1. That was beating Texas A&M way back in the start of the season. They beat them 24-10. Conference champion, as you look forward. If they can get past Wake Forest and South Carolina, they got Virginia Tech, Pitt, or VTech on the other side of the ACC. You got to think they could win those games. They've won 25 games in a row. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs, 8-1 on the season. Big wins against the Florida and Notre Dame, as we talked about. Key games remaining. They play Auburn this weekend, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech. Best win of the season has got to be that win over Florida. They beat them 24-17. In the AP, they're 5, the coaches 5, and they could still potentially be a conference champion, and that would be the worst case scenario for the Alabama Crimson Tide. So you got to, if you're an Alabama fan out there, you got to root for the LSU Tigers to win out. At the number 5 spot, you got the Alabama Crimson Tide. I almost said number 4, and when I put this together, I kind of figured that they would be number 4, but let's talk about Alabama, okay? You got Penn State, Western Carolina, and Auburn remaining. Now, as we look at their schedule, as you know, Alabama doesn't have that many marquee victories, but playing number 1 LSU 46-41, very important for their schedule. Their best win in the season is beating Texas A&M 47-28. AP poll their 4, and the coaches poll their 4. All right, let's look at Oregon real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Games remaining: Arizona, Arizona State, Oregon State. They should be heavy favorites in those games, and if they win those, they will take on Utah for the Pac-12 championship. Top 25 victories, 1. No wins over top 10 teams, but this is critical right here. They lost to Auburn at the start of the season, 27-21 on a neutral site. So you got to think, if Alabama, who's already ahead of them in the college football playoff rankings, beats Auburn in Auburn, that's going to bode well for Alabama. And then all Alabama fans have to do is hope for LSU to beat Georgia in the SEC championship. And you got to think the Alabama Crimson Tide slides into that number 4 spot, and you get an LSU and Alabama rematch, which would be phenomenal. I think we'd all like to see that. So what do you think in the comment box? What do you think of the college football playoff rankings? Sound off. I want to see your rankings in the comment box. Follow all our coverage at BamaInsider.com. Check out our videos and be sure and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching today.